In just 1 week, Missouri voters will head to the polls for the primary elections. One of the notable races for mid-Missouri Republicans is the primary for the Missouri 4th Congressional District. There is no incumbent running, which means a handful of candidates are trying to make it their first term in Congress. KOMU 8's Leah Vredenbregt shows us what Republican voters in the 4th District can expect on their ballots next Tuesday.
In the race for Missouri's 4th Congressional District, the majority of candidates are Republican with only one Democrat and one Libertarian running. There are 7 names filed for the Republican primary. State Senator Rick Bratton, former Marine Bill Irwin, former news anchor Mark Alford, former Boone County Clerk Taylor Burks, farmer and CPA Kalina Bruce, former blues player Jim Campbell, and businessman Kyle LeBrew. Taylor Burks leads the race in fundraising by a fair amount. Former NHL player Jim Campbell is last in fundraising and has no website to share his platform. But he has the most cash on hand, considering he played in the NHL and is now a restaurateur. The 6 candidates with a website share overall similar views on issues like the Second Amendment, abortion rights, and immigration. The areas with some notable differences: term limits, explicitly supported by both Mark Alford and Kyle LeBrew. Taylor Burks and Mark Alford both highlight election security on their websites. In addition, Burks and Kalina Bruce both say it is important to make sure the country has support systems in place to prevent another pandemic like COVID-19. However, Bruce also says she is against many COVID regulations like vaccine requirements and mandates, which Bill Irwin also says he is against on his website. With voters selecting their Republican nominee next week, that candidate will face Democrat Jack Truman and Libertarian Randy Lancraire in the general election. And in January, the new freshman representative from the Missouri 4th will be sworn into Congress. In Columbia, Leah Vredenbregt, KOMU 8 News.
For more information on your mid-Missouri elections, head over to our website, KOMU.com. The Missouri primary election means mid-Missouri voters will be putting someone new in Congress. The 4th Congressional District includes voters from parts of Columbia all the way to the Kansas border. There are 6 Republicans running for the Republican nomination in August. KOMU 8's Leah Vredenbregt looks at where each of the candidates stand on the issue of abortion.
Among the social issues at play in this next election are reproductive rights. Missouri is one of more than a dozen states with trigger laws that heavily restricted abortion access after the overturning of Roe v. Wade last month. All Republican candidates with a website highlight their anti-abortion positions on it. Candidates have specified online or with KOMU that the federal government should defund Planned Parenthood as a part of their anti-abortion stance. Planned Parenthood does get federal money, but because of the Hyde Amendment, the only time any of it can go toward an abortion is if the mother was raped, impregnated through incest, or is in danger because of the pregnancy. The rest of the money goes largely toward STD testings and treatment, cancer screenings, and birth control. Candidate and Kansas City news anchor Mark Alford says he's 100% pro-life, no exceptions. In interviews with KOMU 8, Bill Irwin and Rick Bratton clarified their stances on the matter.
Are you also pro-life in cases of rape, incest, or danger to the mother?
For rape and incest, yeah. I mean, because it's still alive. No, I think it needs to be for the real, true medical, life or death situation of the mother.
For clarification, you're also pro-life in cases of rape, incest, and danger to the mother?
That's a person inside a person. Who votes for that child? I do. That child is a child of God. And God says, that's my child. Yes.
Congress has unsuccessfully attempted to codify Roe into federal law, and in the next Congress, it is possible representatives will need to vote on the measure again. In Columbia, Leah Vredenbregt, KOMU 8 News.
The deadline to register to vote has already passed for this election. Absentee voting will continue until 5 p.m. next Wednesday. We've been reporting for weeks now about the ongoing protests, filibustering, and efforts that state lawmakers are making to try and approve congressional redistricting maps. KOMU 8's Leah Vredenbregt is live in Jefferson City with what the redistricting process has looked like and if it'll be over soon, Leah.
Emily, these maps determine what seat in the U.S. House of Representatives each Missourian lives in. The process takes time, but the pressure is on for the Senate to take action soon.
Mr. President.
Every 10 years, the General Assembly divides more than 6 million Missourians into U.S. House of Representative districts. The current map shows the majority of the state favoring Republicans and 2 districts in St. Louis City and the Kansas City area favoring Democrats. House Bill 2117 would shift these areas and tens of thousands of voters into different districts. It passed the Republican majority House and has support from Senate leadership.
I'm not sure there's a better way to draw the map in a way that doesn't create dominoes that cause more problems than find solutions.
But weeks of filibusters and delays have prevented it from passing.
Draw a map, put out a statement in favor of a map, and we're all supposed to fall in line. I don't think that's right.
A small group of Republicans say the map does not favor conservatives enough.
And we're trying to fight for a stronger map, preferably a 7-1 map or a 6-2 map that much better represents the people who sent us here to Jeff City.
So let's break down the data. 2020 presidential election data shows Republicans had a comfortable margin of victory in 75% of districts. Statewide, however, only 56% of people voted Republican. And under the proposed map, Republicans would still represent 6 out of 8 districts. The primary election for the 8 seats is in August, but filing opens tomorrow. Without approved maps, tens of thousands of voters won't know who their candidates are. Saline County is one area where the lengthy process has left some voters frustrated.
But you don't go dividing up the state in little hodgepodge areas just because of political affiliations.
Senator Denny Hoskins, who represents the area, says the frustration is all part of a difficult process.
You know, I have friends on both sides of the aisle, but this is definitely a battle, and I'm trying to play hardball here in the state of Missouri.
And both sides say they want this over soon.
I'd like to do it by this next Tuesday, February 22nd, the first day of filing.
I'd love to pass 2117. I'd love to get that to the governor's desk and move on.
Filing ends in just over 5 weeks, and counties order their ballots up to months in advance. The Senate tabled redistricting discussions last week and had a scheduled day off today. So when filing starts in the morning, the debates still will not have ended. Live in Jefferson City, Leah Vredenbregt, KOMU 8 News.
After more than 4 months, the Missouri General Assembly has ended its legislative session. The deadline was 6 p.m. for lawmakers to pass any legislation bound for the governor's desk. KOMU 8's Leah Vredenbregt is live at the state capitol. She has a breakdown now of some of the things the legislature got done this session. Leah.
Emily, as you said, the Missouri General Assembly had until 6 p.m. today to pass any legislation onto Governor Mike Parson. However, the Senate adjourned last night after passing congressional redistricting maps, and the Missouri House adjourned just over an hour ago. Today, the Missouri House sent a bill to Governor Parson that requires hospitals to allow up to 3 designated visitors per patient, regardless of vaccination status. It does, however, allow hospitals to limit visitation for specific patients if that patient is suspected of being contagious. The House also passed a bill that requires Kansas City to put 25% of its general revenue toward the Kansas City Police Department instead of the current 20% requirement. The House also passed legislation which modifies utility requirements, and that includes the expansion of broadband for underserved areas and removes some limits on solar panels. Throughout the session, one of the main legislative priorities was the budget, which takes into account the billions of dollars that the state of Missouri is getting from the American Rescue Plan Act. The budget, which passed last week, is $49 billion. It includes raising the minimum starting pay for teachers to $38,000. The budget also includes fully funding school transportation and increases higher education budgets. The budget also funds Medicaid expansion. And the General Assembly also passed tax credits for Missourians earning less than $150,000 a year. At 6, I'll have reaction from Democrat and Republican lawmakers on their thoughts of the end of the session. Live in the Capitol, Leah Vredenbregt, KOMU 8 News. I'm live from inside the state capitol, where state senators are still debating redistricting maps after days of filibusters and delays. This is KOMU 8 News at 6.
Coverage you can count on. KOMU 8 News starts now.
Here's what's happening right now. Some news from the Capitol. We're continuing to follow that process for redrawing congressional districts across Missouri. The Senate has been in long sessions trying to pick a map and even filibustering this week.
KOMU 8's Leah Vredenbregt is live at the state capitol with some background on how this affects Missourians. Leah.
This is something you only see here once every 10 years. After each census, the Missouri General Assembly must redraw the U.S. House of Representatives maps. Now, these maps determine which seat each person in Missouri is represented by. If the Senate does not pass new maps by February 22nd, the primary elections in August could be pushed back because that's when filing opens. In addition, dozens of bills cannot make any progress in the Senate because of the ongoing debates over redistricting. Republicans hold 6 out of 8 districts in the current maps. The proposed maps you see here change the boundaries, but still give Republicans an advantage in 6 districts. Some Republicans are in favor of maps that give their party an advantage in 7 districts, which is not what Senate Majority Leader Caleb Rowden is in favor of. Senator Bob Onder today said the process is taking so long because Republicans like him do not feel heard.
So clearly everyone doesn't agree, and when those of us who don't agree realize that the plan is to run over us, then I think that's when we get into prolonged debate.
Debates are still going on here behind me in the Senate, and we'll have live updates for you as much as we can. Live from Jefferson City, Leah Vredenbregt, KOMU 8 News.